our time, I was thinking one of the best things to do, when you're kind of struggling for like, how do we end this well, is really when God kind of knocks you over the head on Friday with a truth that just seemed very appropriate for today. And it actually is somewhat of a painful story that I went through on Friday. Before that, I'm going to share my screen. All right. Are you seeing my big screen or my notes screen?
Your big screen, no notes.
Okay, good. Okay, great. So yeah, I'm going to introduce you to something that is Justo Gonzalez was known for coining, which is Fuente Ovejuna theology. And it's toward a theology of solidarity. And this is in Mañana, Christian Theology from a Hispanic Perspective, which is part of the excerpts that I gave you the other day to read through. Fuente Ovejuna theology is not some sort of different theology to Abuelita theology or anything like that. It's just kind of a different aspect of it. And wanted to just read this excerpt for you. It's about a couple pages long. And so here's where the idea of Fuente Ovejuna theology comes from. Lope de Vega's play, Fuente Ovejuna, tells the story of the small town of that name, which was under the tyrannical rule of Don Fernan Gomez, knight commander of the Order of Calatrava. After much suffering, the townspeople finally rebel and kill the commander, placing his head on a pike as a banner of their freedom. Their battle cry is Fuente Ovejuna, todos a una. Fuente Ovejuna, all are one. When the Grand Master of the Order hears of this, he appeals to Ferdinand and Isabella, who appoint a judge inquisitor to find the guilty parties and punish them. The judge, however, finds that he can make little progress in his inquiry, for whenever he asks, ¿Quién mató al comendador? Who killed the commander? The answer is always the same. Fuente Ovejuna, señor. Fuente Ovejuna, my lord. Irritated, he puts 300 of the local inhabitants to torture. Still, from all of them, men, women, children, people in their old age, the answer is the same. Fuente Ovejuna, señor. Finally, the judge asks for instructions from Isabella and Ferdinand, who respond that given such unanimity, there must have been just cause for the commander's death. The interesting point, however, is that when the townspeople respond, Fuente Ovejuna, señor, they are not simply trying to cover up for one another. What has happened is that through their suffering and final uprising, such solidarity has arisen that they do not believe it was the town, and they do believe it was the town and not any individuals in it that killed the commander. Not only will they not fix individual responsibility, they could not do so even if they tried. Fuente Ovejuna, todos a una, has become more of a battle cry and is now the very reality by which they live. This is a contribution that Hispanics can bring to theology. Actually, I skipped the part. The reason for calling attention to the story of Fuente Ovejuna is a call for a different style of doing theology, a Fuente Ovejuna style. If theology is the task of the church, and the church is by definition a community, there should be no such thing as individual theology. The best theology is a communal enterprise. This is a contribution that Hispanics can bring to theology. Western theology, especially that which takes place in academic circles, has long suffered from an exaggerated individualism. Theologians, like medieval knights, joust with one another while their peers cheer from the stands, where they occupy places of honor at the plebes, and the plebes look at the contest from a distance, if they look at all. The methodology of a Hispanic Fuente Ovejuna theology will contrast with this. Ours is not a tradition that values individualism, as does that of the North Atlantic. Indeed, ours is a language that does not even have a word for that privacy, which the dominant North American culture so values. Coming out of that tradition, our theology will result from a constant dialogue from the entire community. In the end, to the degree that it is true to the faith and experience of that community, to that very degree will be impossible for any of us to speak of my theology or your theology. It will not be a theology of theologians, but a theology of the believing and practicing community. When someone asks us, ¿Quién mató al comendador? All we shall be able to answer is, Fuente Ovejuna, señor. So that was, became the inspiration of this talk, but really it actually just came from, as the talk was talking about, a moment of pain that I had on Friday. So on Friday, I had okay, first of all, y'all have been sworn to secrecy. Okay, raise your right hand, say I will not share any of what I'm about to hear. And so because it involves people I work with and my boss, and so, which, I can actually speak tons of great things about this person for sure. But Friday, there was a bit of a misstep, we'll say. Friday morning, had a leadership meeting, and I knew going into the meeting that it was going to be a difficult meeting because we were going to talk about how to stay unified through these difficult times, meaning leadership change times in Cru and also political times, right? So which is already a triggering thing for me. The team is 16 people. I'm the only person of color on the team. And so we are at the point of the meeting where we are brainstorming all of the different things we want to be true of this team before, as we kind of head out and leave the office, and how to be unified as an office. So people are writing all sorts of stuff. I already know there's kind of already tensions on the team because I've had tensions with people because of this topic. And people are writing, believe the best about each other, always be humble, pray for one another, et cetera, et cetera. And, there's like all these things. And so we're sharing on this document. I'm not sharing anything because I'm just like, and I'm telling my friend Rebecca, who also texted me and I didn't see it. And she's like, are you not writing anything? I'm just like, these are all things we already do. Why am I going to write anything in further of, like, I know all of these 16 people. They're all relatively humble people. The reason we're even in leadership is because we were chosen because we embody the values of our organization, values of faith, growth, and fruitfulness, and community. And so there's not really anything that challenges us to go deeper. And so during the process, I said, hey, can we do a quick process check? And so I'm like shaking, my voice is shaking as I'm doing this. I'm about to cry already, but I got through the first few sentences without crying. Eventually it just kind of went downhill. And I just basically described to them all that I said. I said, we already do all these things. I believe in each one of you. I've had significant conversations with each of you about one thing or another. I know that you are good people. I'm reassuring them, because I do believe all of those things. I believe that they will, that if they're told something, that they will, not completely lash out. They're not disrespectful, we'll say. Yeah, just overall, I would say, for the most part, fair-minded people, right? And so, but I was thinking about the thing I want, and even what my HR person, Rebecca, said, just think about what you need from the team. And I said, what I need from the team is solidarity, and that's kind of where I was starting to cry. I said, I could put solidarity on here and everything that it means, but I don't think everybody will be able to sign off on it. And I said that out loud. And so, I'm crying as I share that now. And so, I was just kind of given that space. People said, thank you for sharing. I knew that a good 50% of the team was ready to support me. So, and it also just speaks to the team that I was even there and able to say that. I mean, this is the team that does empower me to do things like this, right? But despite being in an operational finance role and being paid staff as well. And so, so just kind of after the meeting was over, ended up having a fairly good conversation with my boss at the end of the day. Also regarding the open letter, which, if you haven't figured it out, ask somebody about the open letter if you don't know what that is. And so one of the people on the team that's been to London before, she started chatting with me and she's like, what does solidarity look like for a team like us? And I'm like, that's a good question. And I'm so glad that she asked me, because then all of these thoughts kind of started coming in my head about what it means to have solidarity and what really people of color in this organization, in the country, anywhere want from their white brothers and sisters, or what one Hispanic group might want from another Hispanic group, Hispanic Latino group, what African Americans would want from Latinos, vice versa, you know, all of the things. And so these are kind of the thoughts that that came to my mind. What does solidarity look like? So one of the first things solidarity says, I believe you. Full stop. And I'll probably pause between each of you so you can kind of think about what that means for you. So even in this meeting where I had, you know, probably 50% of people that absolutely support me, it would even have gone further to say, not just that I had the security of saying that, you know, knowing that they would, you know, go to bat for me, but somebody saying, I believe you out loud. And I'm here for you. Solidarity says, your pain is my pain. Your pain is my pain. And when I say your pain is my pain, that's not just sympathetic feelings, but having the imagination to go to, if this happened to me, this is how I would want people to respond. This is especially how I would want the church to respond. Your pain is my pain. Solidarity chooses the side, quote unquote, as we like to frame things in sides, right? I don't, but people do. Solidarity chooses the side of the victim and the abused over someone who has an opinion about the issues that impact that victim only through theory. So Dr. Robert Charamero touched on this quite a bit. If you see someone getting hurt physically, politically, spiritually, solidarity stands in the way. So if you see somebody, see something going wrong, say, I'm gonna take the brunt for this. I'm the one that's gonna take the hit. But solidarity is not being the hero. Doing the above things are as much doing for yourself as it is for others. So there's no distinction between me and you. It's just us. It's just together. So, and what is the greatest example of this? We see a very, very clear biblical verse that covers solidarity. And so that's in Matthew 25, 37 through 40. Again, shout out to Dr. Romero for the Matthew 25 ministries. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me, which means that in order to be more and more like Christ, we have to put ourselves in the way as Christ put himself in the way for us. And so that is basically what Fuente Ovejuna theology is. That's what we can gain by truly studying the theology of all kinds of churches, but in this case, the Hispanic Latino church. And so that is all I have for today. And yeah, it was great to be able to serve with you. And just think about what are the ways, what are the meetings that you're in, what are the situations that you see politically, spiritually, organizationally, where God wants you to stand in the way for the church. That's all.
Can you stop share screen, Michelle? Yes, thank you all. It was a pleasure to be with you all the past 3 weeks. Oh, question, Michelle, what did they say?
I did not share that yet with them, that specific, outline. Those kind of thoughts that started coming to my mind. Only the person that was facilitating the meeting, who was my group leader, responded. Always responds with thanks, especially for being vulnerable. Doesn't really fight me on very much in the moment anyway. So yeah, but well, it's an ongoing conversation. I think one of the struggles of especially being in an operational space is that, and we were talking about this earlier, is that emotions can take a back seat because bills got to get paid, things got to get done. And so there's always a struggle of how much energy do we put into something like the emotional safety of our people of color.
Yeah.